Calling to order this meeting.
Good morning, everyone. This is our workshop. It is not a board meeting. Today, we will be discussing two main areas. We'll be discussing the facilities master plan, and we'll be discussing the 2024 insurance, health insurance. Specifically, we'll be discussing the percentages for both the college and the employees. And we'll be discussing anything else the board brings forward, of course. And so we will start, I believe, facilities.
Good morning, Board Chair, Board Trustees, Dr. Williams. Back in June, we came to the board with a master plan phase 1.
I'm sorry, Trustee Gibbons, can you hear us? Okay, thank you.
With a master plan phase 1 action steps for the first quarter of the fiscal year. And so within that, we promised a quarterly update at minimum. So I'm going to provide that update. These first few slides is just a reminder of a facility master plan and really the purpose. The purpose is to have some type of framework to address any growth in our capital improvements. Specific to SPC, we were addressing some of the outcomes from the analysis from Cushman and Wakefield. One, which is improving 28% of our space utilization, which will also reduce our oversubscription in our physical footprint, to enhance our academic synergy and make sure it's aligned with our strategic plan, to generate some diverse funding to fund future capital projects, especially for projects that will align with mission-critical initiatives, and then also to reduce our facility maintenance costs in alignment with usage. And that last statement is really just about being good stewards over our assets. As you see, we're at 28% of our space utilization, so 72% of our space is not being occupied, and we're spending dollars in order to maintain that space. So one of the things from Cushman and Wakefield they started with was visioning sessions. They had 4 sessions, 2 sessions with the board executive leadership, well, some of the board members' executive leadership, to really talk about what does SPC really want to see out of this. They had 2 other sessions that were really involved some stakeholders, a couple community members to really talk about, again, what do we see when it comes to our property. Some of the main points that we received from this was they want to address the 28% utilization. We also wanted to make sure that we improved our access to students when it came to technology, really ensure that our spaces were conducive to better learning. One of the other things that really came out of this was when we looked at HEC, the discussion really led to that the HEC programs did not need to be locked into one particular location. Another part of that was really continuing to make sure that Cushman and Wakefield kept those vision sessions and our mission in front of them when they came back with recommendations. And so some of the 4 main focuses, I would say, that led the recommendations were, one was optimizing our utilization. The second was making sure that we consolidated our assets and to have a cohesive experience across SPC. Thirdly was that we were not going to be real estate management because that was not part of the core of SPC, but we would look to make opportunities to maximize our educational and operational efficiencies. And then lastly was to diverse some of our properties in order to increase our capital funding to reinvest into other assets. With that, Cushman and Wakefield recommendations, one was to hire a space architect to finalize program mood recommendations. Second was to dispose of Tier 1 rated surplus property, which was the HEC South Annex, which is about 2 or 3 blocks south of the HEC main campus. Second property is the St. Pete Gibbs Wellness, which again is south of the main St. Pete Gibbs campus, and then the Coliseum parking lot, which is actually next to us, the lot next to us. All three of these properties do not have SPC operations on them. The only property that we actually are leasing out the first floor is the HEC South Annex. Third was to strategize plans to dispose of HEC main site through a simple sale, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the second slide. And third was to Allstate, to dispose of Allstate through a simple sale or ground lease. We had them specifically look at P3s and for HEC and for Allstate, and they determined and came back that it was not, P3 was not in the best interest for our situation. One of the main reasons is that we are overly subscribed. 28% of our utilization, they typically see an average of about 44%, and best practice is over 60%. And typically with the P3, you see that done if you need additional space. One of the other things that was said through the vision session was, do we really need to look at P3s with elaborate new buildings, or do we need to renovate our spaces and make it better for our students? So second, I talked a little bit more in the last slide about the P3, but again, this was just one of their findings from the discussion and their analysis with the P3s. And again, it was the space. We had plenty space. One of the comments they made is SPC has no issue with growth because there's lots and lots of space. Even with the recommendations that they gave, we would still end up at about 45% utilization. The ground lease was really something where it depends on what the college decides, but they did recommend that for Allstate that we did a straight sale. When it comes to the ground lease, you get about approximately 6% of the value. With that, it would take us about 20 years in order to receive the value, the current value of that property. So an update on what we've done since June when you approved that plan. We have started our facility building assessment. That started this month. Next month, they'll be going out to the campuses and assessing the condition of our buildings. We've engaged space architects for our projects. We also have notified our leasing partner. As I mentioned, at the HEC South Annex, we do have tenants that are leasing the first floor. Next, we continued our conversations about Allstate, HEC, and the programming. I know the deans and provosts have had a lot of discussion about those recommendations and will be providing feedback on those moves. We also did title searches and property easement searches on Bay Pines and Vet Tech, which was one of their recommendations, and we received your approval to dispose of the Coliseum parking lot, the Wellness Center, and the Annex building. With that, we've engaged a real estate broker that has been doing some initial work for us, and then we finalized a sales strategy for those three properties. So what are we looking at next? For October, one is the update that you're receiving now. As I mentioned, we began the facility assessment on the buildings, and we've also started with our construction manager and architect selection process. For next month, we will be hoping to list the HEC Annex and the Coliseum property, also scheduling some campus master plan meetings, and coming back to the board for approval for the president to negotiate the listed property and also entertain and negotiate some letter of intents that we receive for the Wellness Center. In December, we will start to obligate deferred maintenance project dollars. Just as a reminder, this is the $47.5 million that we received from the state. We have heard yesterday that funding may be available sometime in November. They're receiving that from the federal government, and then we can draw down after that. One of the stipulations to that is that we had to start initiation of all those projects by June 30 of 2023. In January, we will come back with an update on the master plan. March, we should have the completion of the facility building assessment, in April, the completion of the master plan moves and meetings and discussions. And then in June, we will be coming back with a complete 5-year facility plant survey, which we will be requesting the board to approve, and also another update for the master plan. Questions on that update?
I just have one question. Do we have any details as far as how the drawdown's going to work with the deferred maintenance funding from the state? Is it project specific? Is it a year at a time? Is it how are they planning on doing that?
So initially what they did is they requested from us a list of projects to be approved. That was approved, I believe, about 3 weeks ago. And that was a very vague list of the projects. What we did from SBC is we took each campus and kind of provided all of the deferred maintenance needs on each campus. I think it's about 11 or 12 specific projects. Therefore, when we get the building assessment, we've covered a vast variety of projects. So they did inform us that once we submitted that and it was approved, there was no amendments to that, which is why we were very broad in that. And then the requirement would be once they receive it, we would do our normal drawdown, and we have 31 months to spend all of that funding.
It's good. Or comments?
Trustee Gibbons, do you have some questions?
No, very clear. No.
Okay.
Trustee Cole?
No, thank you. I mean, Dr. Williams and I spoke a lot about this moving forward, and I think our initial plan with these high-level dispositions, I know that there's been some discussion about, one thing I suggested was perhaps in January or February, based on the calendar, we can look at the disposition of some of the other parcels and determine from the board standpoint whether there's any strategic reasons to, instead of just the wholesale disposition, to do some sort of partnership or define the uses we want to see. Not necessarily a P3, because I think for the reasons Janet described, that's not necessarily what we're looking for, but there may be synergies or opportunities to have a purchaser do a development that's accretive to the college, and I think that's the next step, is kind of looking at some of those other parcels that we've talked about and deciding if there's something in that realm. So,
But if we could, Janet, can we go back to that slide where we did do some of that work with the board early on about to see when we go through properties. But we said we want, whatever happens, is to saying when we get to Allstate and HEC, you want to kind of go through that process for those particular two parcels.
I think specifically for those two on the front end, but I mean, we obviously have a long list of other properties that may or may not, be on the list to dispose of. And so I think as we go through, I just think part of the discussion, and we did it already, I don't want to imply that we haven't done it on what we've said, but I think very intentionally, I would like the board to look at each parcel and say, we want this to just be a straight sale. It's disposition, it brings us right-sized, it helps us with our percentages, or is there a reason to do any type of RFP or plan or request purchasers to develop it in a certain manner that's accretive to the college? So
Do you think that we would come together again in the next couple of months to make that determination? Because as you know, Trustee Cole, you already know more about it than all of us. So for me, it's the timing and the hurricane, what happened. We definitely want to move forward. Do you think that the board
think in January, when we get our update, we can, I mean, between now and then, when you have your individual meetings with us, the rest of the board members can say, I mean, I don't know if you all, I mean, for those two parcels, I don't know that we need to do anything other than just sell them. I'm not suggesting for those two we do. I think there are other parcels that we own that we might eventually get to, that we want some more accretive. I mean, in my opinion, those two parcels are ripe for just a straight sale, in addition to the three, HEC and Allstate. And I think a lot of it's driven, as we've talked about over the past 2 years, where those programs are being moved to and us being comfortable with the academic side of it. I mean, it's a change, obviously, to have our health programs not on one campus. They didn't used to be on one campus, then they were. Now we're suggesting perhaps they shouldn't be. So I think I would like to see, and we've talked about it, what is that consolidation plan? Where are those programs going? And that's what we're working on. Yeah. So I hope I'm not asking for anything we're not already doing. I think there are probably some other parcels that the college owns. I was having, I don't know if Paul's here, but we were talking about like the Palladium parking lot that's not on the list, but yet potentially has an opportunity in downtown St. Pete to have a great return. We wouldn't want to dispose of that, in my opinion, without some accretive benefit to the college or the Palladium, i.e. dedicated parking, a specified use, different things like that. So I just think that, I mean, we're doing it now based on this slide with how it benefits the mission. I think once we start talking about some of these more discrete parcels that we haven't talked about yet, that are more embedded in a community, we might want to have that conversation.
You said for the to sell, it was Allstate and the HEC. There are other parcels, and one was the Palladium parking lot that we build a parking garage, or just I'm just throwing it out.
Some benefit.
Something where there's a benefit.
Okay, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I just want to thank Janet and your team because this has been an exhaustive, long process. Cushman Wakefield, I don't think they're here. In my opinion, they provided expertise here and did a really good job. Maybe everybody doesn't agree, but from their presentations and everything. So thank you and for spearheading this. I mean, it's exciting to be where we are because 9 months ago, it was going to be a long process.
I do have one question. I know we had the group of professionals that we had brought together 2 years ago to do the tour of campus and give us advice. Could we just send an update to that group of people just as a touch point to say thank you again? As a result, this is what we've been doing. We didn't take your feedback and go into a black hole and ignore it. We appreciate, and because those people are also extremely connected, and in addition to our broker, they would have contacts and opportunities as well. So, and just a real brief, we are definitely selling these two parcels. We think we're selling these two, and we're going to continue looking at the others.
And I would say the Allstate and HEC has not been approved by the board. We can share we are looking at that, but not until the board votes and approves it.
So are we, the committee meeting we're talking about, is that the one that Matthew led? Because I was going to say the same thing. I think
All the time.
Yeah, that is the trustee Givens.
Any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
We'll move forward to the 2024 Employee Health Insurance Plan. And ask Darryl to give a presentation on how we got to the point of the recommendation that was submitted last month or 2 months ago. And then to hear from the board. Darryl.
Good morning, Chair Kidwell, trustees, Dr. Williams. Thank you guys for having me this morning as I discuss this difficult task that's put before me here. So back in 2019, you guys gave us the charge to do 3 things. The first was to evaluate the medical benefits and the benefit cost options. The second thing was to evaluate the benefit of transitioning from an independent self-insured medical plan. And looking at this was based on the volatility of the actual unforeseen costs that we kept getting year after year. And also the actual responsibility for the college of up to $350,000 before our stop loss insurance kicked in. And then the third thing you guys asked us or tasked us with was to create a contribution model methodology that was sustainable, fair, and just. So where did that take us? In 2021, what we did was we joined the consortium. And by joining the consortium, what that did was it helped us to no longer have to have the safe harbor, right? Because we had spent from 2017 to 2020 almost $5.5 million on unforeseen costs, right? We also became a part of a larger risk pool for medical claims, which is a great thing. However, we still carried our prior risk index score, which is why we have a higher premium cost. We also was tasked with looking at the whole thing with our cost sharing model. And based on us evaluating this and assessing this, we found that there was a parity issue in the cost sharing model. To address this disparity, the college transitioned in 2021 from the 9-tier model to a 3-tier model. In August, you guys approved for us to transition from that 3-tier model to a 1-tier model. Again, we're trying to get to that point of equality and fairness within our actual plans. So the goal of SBC, given to us from the board, was to provide employees with the same level of funding toward their medical benefits for fairness, parity, and equality. So for 2024, where are we going? The board approved the 2024 contribution model of the employee-only plan being the set dollar amount for all employees. What this means is that set amount can be applied to all of our plans across the board. This model will create parity for all employees by giving each employee the same amount no matter the plan they choose, right? So everyone will get it. What I wanted to do here is I want to kind of look at a graph to kind of help you guys to see exactly where your guidance led us, right? So if you look at this graph from 16 to 20, you see that we kind of overland this. This is the total insurance cost versus the actual employer paid or SPC paid cost, right? We're overlanded. What that means is that we are absorbing all of the actual costs each year. In 2021, what you see is there's a separation, right? That's when we joined the consortium. And by us joining the consortium at that time, what we started to do, we took that 9-tier, went to the 3-tier to get to that equality, right? So the employee plan started to pay a little bit more. As you see that going across, even last year we went down because what we did was we absorbed the additional cost of like over $300,000 for our employees. So we took that cost on and we kind of went on. What you guys approved now, even when you see 22, 23, is still going down because even though we are at a 75-25 split, the split is still large enough where we're taking even on more than it was in a tier plan. As we are going up and we're trying to equalize this, you see that split getting wider because we're equalizing our cost sharing model between the actual employer and the employee. Okay? So what you guys approved was these 2 different options. In 2023, if a person have an HMO or a PPO, the cost for the HMO is $500. We give the employee pays 25%, SPC pays 75%. That's the cost difference. But if I'm an employee and I want the PPO plan, the plan is $600, you'll give me $150 and you'll pay $450. We're trying to get away from that because that's not equal. That's not fair, right? Based on the plan I pick, I get more money. If we look at 2024, where we're trying to go, we look at both these plans. We have a $500 plan for the SPC, for the HMO. We pay $500. That's at no cost to the employee. We're covering it at 100%. However, if I'm an employee and I want the PPO plan, it's $600. We still pay that same $500. The employee pay $100. We still have a cost share model. The employee share is 17%. Our share is 83%, right? But they still get the same $500 no matter what plan they choose. The next two graphs show where we're trying to go and what your actual guidance sent us to, right? So based on the actual approved amount, we looked at our bronze plan. We don't know what that cost will be in 2024, but it was $813, right? The estimate cost is almost $19 million for our actual benefits total. Based on the employee cost, that they will only share about $7 million, and then SBC will cost over $12 million. So the total amount of this $9,756 is about, Trustee Code, you asked me something about the total compensation, and I looked into that on a person with $65,000 a year. This equates to about 15% above that we're investing in our employee for the total compensation, right? Industry standards and the average is about 15%. So this is exactly at 15% if we did $813 per person. The next option, because I did want to bring another option, because this was the lowest option as far as our bronze plan, but bringing the option of the HMO Gold plan, which is our highest level of our employee-only plan. This plan is $1,015 per employee or $12,180 a year, right? And this is a little bit over 18.5% for that total compensation that we will be adding in here. So you see the cost share and the breakdown, and it's coming back together here. We're trying to get back to where it's showing where we're sharing that cost a little bit more, right? So that's the actual breakdown. The employee support and guidance, what we're planning to do is we want to communicate the benefit offerings and the contribution model so that our employees understand it. We want to communicate regularly throughout the year, one-on-ones, presentations, campus visits, et cetera, to make sure that our employees know what their options are. So kind of being there. We want to educate our employees about all of their options, including the their ability to go and use the health insurance marketplace, and not from the standpoint of us being able to tell them, hey, this is what this plan provides, because we're not able to tell them that, but to give them the direction to be able to go there to kind of say, hey, this is where you kind of use this to compare apples to apples. We want to have a place where our employees can submit their questions and ask their questions, and then we want to create an FAQ for employees to reference. Trustee Givens asked me about, I'm not an insurance guy, that's not my area, I do HR, I understand the models and building this out, and one of the things that he asked me was having an insurance person step in. Brown & Brown is our insurance broker of record right now, and my goal is to get them in this conversation and bring them to the table. So our goal is by January to have a conversation with Brown & Brown for them to come in on this presentation to kind of share some more information and insight based on the conversation we have today. Are there any questions?
Not a conversation.
Conversation.
I think that,
The move to a different percentage has been tough on the employee. I know you guys have shared your concerns, and I hear you.
but I think the other is for us to get right around. And even look at a third option for the employees in 2024. I think
That in conversations with the board,
there, many of you have expressed concern about us kind of taking that.
in the very next year, going through a more
Difficult fit for the employees,
especially for those who are more than employee only.
I think that's been the biggest concern is
What about those who are
employee plus one, plus spouse, plus family, that the cost for the employee has been.
that was a big dip. so, as president, I'm coming back to say we do need to look at this. Brown and Brown to come in and really give us more feedback and information, and then kind of the board for reconsideration
of what that would be once we get Brown and Brown. So our meeting in January is another workshop. And to me, that would be a perfect place for Brown and Brown to come and provide the board with more feedback and information. I am proud of the college for the work they've done to get to this point, because that was the direction. But I do think that we may have been a little too eager in the percentages. And I was for that initially. So I'm not going to blame anyone else on that. But I would like to bring it back. Trustee Gibbons?
Mr. Chair, Madam President, thank you for that presentation. It was a good presentation. I would also ask, yes, I think we should get Brown and Brown back here and to come in and see us. But I would also say I think Brown and Brown has pretty much failed us in this situation. When is our RFP up for insurance services?
My understanding from is it for Brown and Brown is what you're asking?
So we did an RFP last August. We sent it out. We only got, I want to say maybe two. One was not able to actually be our insurance broker. The problem is because Brown and Brown is only over our ancillary benefits and not our whole package. So people really don't want to be your broker of record because they want the whole shebang, right? So because we have the consortium, that kind of impacted our proposal for other people to kind of look at us to be our broker of record. So it kind of stuck us with them because they were the best deal in town for us, Trustee Gibbons.
So what Trustee Gibbons asked was how long is that?
So that right now, I think that's a year.
Another year?
Yeah, I have to, let me check. Let me check to get back.
Trustee Gibbons, he's going to check and give you the specific date when that is up.
That's fine. I guess what I'm trying to get at is we probably need to go out to the competitive market. And, a person on our board that Jason Butts knows more about this than anybody. So, I don't know how we do that. Maybe we delay for a year and try to figure out something for a year and then get a new broker. Or Brown and Brown may win again. But what I'm saying is I think we need to be competitive and go out and see what's out there and who is innovative in terms of trying to help us figure this situation out. I sent Dr. Williams an article a couple weeks ago that Pasco County Schools is dealing with the same issue. So this is not something that just St. Pete College is doing. It's a universal issue. Insurances are going up. Cost of insurance is going up, and it's just harder, but I want to make sure that we're fair and equitable to the college, but also to our employees. So I'd like to continue the discussion like we're doing. So thanks.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Trustee Butts, what are your thoughts?
I think we need to engage with multiple health insurance brokers and have them come in with ideas. They'll take a look at what we've done in the past, present ideas and options, and then after hearing those, then we can decide if you stay with Brown and Brown, who, for the record, is an excellent company, great reputation in the marketplace. But we decide on allowing, if there is a creative option out there to help us, then you find that broker that you want to then go to market. One broker that has the voice of the college is then able to go ahead and negotiate specific rates, whereas you can't have 5 people. They can come and give you preliminary rates, but in terms of going and negotiating, we'll have to decide one broker to go ahead and take that to the actual market. But it really all depends on who's going to be able to come back and provide a plan that they think is going to be beneficial to the college.
Just for clarification, Brown and Brown's not our broker for health insurance though, right?
We're still with
We've never asked them to present this plan. So to Trustee Gibbons' point, it's not that they failed us, we didn't even ask them to do anything because we're part of the consortium.
Correct.
So our only option is to look at how the money is, or how the cost is allocated.
So I think
The percentages
Yes.
is I think the percentages definitely is, to me, what the employees are concerned about is how the cost, kind of went up pretty high pretty quickly on their side. And so I think that is what the board is going to need to advise me better on. Not that you didn't advise me good the first time, but that we need to make this something that is more palatable for both the college and the employees. And it may take us a little longer to get to it. We thought we could get to it within 3 years, but it may be something that we need to take a little slower road on.
Well, I guess that's my concern about setting our expectations, what the deliverable is when we come back in January. Because as a member of the consortium, we're not going out. I mean, what Trustee Gibbons just said, or are we asking the college to do the same analysis we did 18 months ago when we joined the consortium and saying we want to hire a brokerage firm and go out and get all of these, or are we saying, to the president's point, we just need to have a more intentional conversation about the allocation cost. From a cost standpoint, I mean, I know at our company, our estimated increase in health insurance moving into next year is 34%. So it is not sustainable financially for the college to bear 75% of a 30% increase year over year, right? So we know that that's not sustainable. So I guess I want to be sure we're asking the right question, giving you the right guidance, because it seems as though the question might be, do we slow down the 50-50 split? And we're at 75-25 moving into this year. Do we want to keep that again next year? And then, continue?
That's
Is that the question?
So, well, for me, what I'd like to do, and Trustee Butts, I would need your help because I'm not, an insurance person, but there's really both things, Trustee Cole. I would like Brown or someone to look at the consortium with us, not that we're undoing it. I just want to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck with the consortium. So I would like to, if we don't use Brown & Brown, find someone who can help us look at our premiums. That's one. And two, I am coming back saying, let's reconsider the percentages. And I think that if we have a professional come in and talk to us about the premiums and what they can do to help, that's fine. But I think the board won't really have to push the president hard on changing those percentages. It's just what would, maybe I can suggest 3 or 4 different options for the board to look at on the percentages. But I do think that we need to look at that again.
Madam President, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, real quick, I'm with Jason Butts. Brown & Brown has an excellent reputation in the insurance community. And in fact, I've known Hyatt Brown since I was a kid over in Daytona Beach. But neither here nor there. The thing is, let's find a consultant. I would make a motion. We can't make it because it's not a board meeting. But at the board meeting, I would make a motion that we ask Trustee Butts to kind of head this up with you and find consultants that can bring us back viable solutions to these problems, as opposed to someone who may or may not benefit from helping us. And I'm saying that because I don't want to put Brown & Brown in a situation where it looks like, when they make a recommendation, they may or may not benefit from it. So, and I'm sure Trustee Butts has plenty of people that are in this space that can probably come up and help us with solutions to the problem.
Okay. See you and I.
What getting volunteered for?
What it's called is voluntold.
I have such a high confidence in Trustee Butts. He knows so much about this space.
What would be our, and I agree with Mr. Gibbons, I think that's an ideal path forward right now for us. What's the drop dead date to finalize a 2024 plan
So Dr. Williams actually did a great thing of us bringing it forth now so that we can have these discussions. Usually I need to get this stuff to you guys by August to approve where we're going next year so that my team can start rolling out the costs. So I would probably say by April we have a decision on what we're doing, even if we don't have the cost or anything. But by April we have a contribution model that we want to move forward.
I think your timeline's fair. I think what I'm struggling with is we're trying in our minds to fix a percentage, right? Not knowing what it's a percentage of. And I think that's the difficulty is the cost. So we could say, 75%, but if a plan skyrockets 40 or 50%, that's tough. So I think it's one of those things where you're trying to get maybe a range or,
A range would be helpful.
a decent range as to where, and then what the college feels comfortable budget-wise that they can step in and give some expectation to the team as to what that's going to be. So I think it's tough to go in the mindset of let's just pick a percentage and that's what it is. I mean, no idea what it's a percentage of. So
You're right, and the reason I was adamant about bringing 2024 a year and a half early was to give us all time to prepare, for the change instead of it being last minute, because usually with the consortium, we may know like in July. So that would not give the employees enough time to do it, and that's why I was saying maybe a third option is to, float that 75-25 for another year until we can figure this out. But I do think that we need to look at both the percentages and the premiums. And my whole focus was to bring it early so everybody had enough time to work through it. But we don't know what the insurance is going to be until we get it in July. We have our, that's just kind of how it works. But we're in good time. And I just don't want everybody getting the heebie-jeebies out there about it, about the insurance. We'll figure it out.
Dr. Williams and I did meet with the consortium, and basically the percentage that it went up this year, it actually should have went up higher than what it did. Based on our risk index score being so high, and I think that's the factor that a lot of people are not really considering. We have an aging workforce and the demographics of our workforce, which actually make our premium so much higher. And because of all of that, we have to consider that as well. My team is looking at wellness programs and how we can actually benefit that. But we did talk, Dr. Williams, I don't know if you recall when you had the conversation with Chauncey about having us reassessed as far as our claims and stuff like that. Because if we can be reassessed and our actual claims have dropped, then that may impact the actual cost, which will probably make your decision a little easier to make if it's a cheaper premium.
I will say this, I'm still very much in favor of going to a fixed employer cost. How we come up with that number each year, I think, is what we need to figure out. But it's a much more fair model than a percentage based upon, as we've seen in the past, which plan people choose, how many family members they have, at least with a fixed number. It's the same across the board for everyone. It should lead, as we get better at this, for more consistency and control on our part, the budget going forward each year without drastic changes. We can reassess as needed. But I still think that's the best model. It's just a matter of what that number looks like and where that falls on a percentage basis once we understand what our premiums look like each year. So we get more information back as we talk more about this. I know that what I'll be doing is laying this all out in spreadsheets. That's the only way I can do anything. And trying to guesstimate, right? If it increases this much in 25, this much in 26, this much in 27, what's a fair increase in that fixed cost each year to the college and to the employee?
So the increase, I can give you this if you're a spreadsheet guy, is 9% is what they say year over year is what our cost is. So 9% is something that they tell us to use.
I agree, Trustee Spencer. I didn't want to lose the big picture of this conversation, which is the equity of how we pay for our plans. And I mean, I think that just, when we get a model, and I think it would be helpful too to see how other colleges, and maybe not even other colleges. One thing that Dr. Williams and I talked briefly was even other governments in our marketplace. I mean, if I appreciate our faculty and adjunct are kind of, they are unique in their skill sets, but a lot of our staff, if they're as public servants, I mean, perhaps there are other opportunities for work via other government agencies. And I would just be interested to see kind of how those compare as well. If our competition for hiring, if I'm looking at competition for hiring, and we're looking at total compensation package, somebody thinks they're going to get a better job at the city of Largo or at Milton County or the city of St. Pete than here. I mean, what does that really look like?
And Dr. Williams, you might just share with Trustee Coles, the Bureau of Labor Statistics sheet that I showed you. They just came out with something on September 22nd that has exactly what you talked about, the total compensation, but it has state and government, and it does lay it out based on state colleges. So what that looks like, what that actual hourly amount should be. And I can tell you our amount is over because I believe, Dr. Williams, it was 11% is what they had for what they did for their compensation. And what I'm showing is 15 and 18.5%. So we are still over what they're saying is the average.
Anything else about,
Let me just say this. I don't want to make anyone look more confident, I promise. I want to thank Daryl, team, Dr. Williams, everybody for doing an excellent job on this. This is a difficult issue. Companies struggle with this all the time, and I'm sure that everybody on the board has either served or understands. Because I've served in my former life on a board that we work to put our insurance packages together, and it's tough. This is not an easy thing. You have to figure out that fine balance where you are helping families and individuals that are employees be able to pay what's fair, but also putting in enough to make sure that they don't go broke. So it's definitely a fine balance. And we have to figure that out, and I think we're doing an excellent job moving down that track. So I don't want people to say that President or Daryl or anybody else moved and tried to get this thing pushed through in the wrong way. It happens. This is one of the toughest things that companies struggle with. What is the amount that companies should be paying to make sure that they can be competitive, like Trustee Cole said, in the marketplace, but also making sure that they protect and watch out for the families that they are entrusted with when people get hired on with their companies or the college. I appreciate the time that you guys take a look at this because it's a really tough issue. If everybody can do it and everybody can be, an insurance expert, we're not. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that's working on it.
And I would just add to that I personally have heard from many of you, and I think I speak for the board when I say they have as well. So we hear the concerns. This is one that can keep me up at night in terms of.
keep you up at night?
Well, I mean, we're part of it. But, we're trying to hear everybody's viewpoint on this to make sure that, because I have a family too. We hear the concerns and they are valid, and we're trying to, like Trustee Gibbons just said, difficult decision or difficult issue that we're trying to, do what's best for everybody.
Any other comments on insurance? Anything else that the board wanted to bring up at the workshop? Trustee Gibbons?
I'm good. Thank you for the time.
Thanks for joining.
Okay.
All right. Workshop's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So are we going to be able to have that meeting real quick? Yeah.